Thank you. Those will be all free tonight.
Well, it's been here.
If Neil, if I hear anything, like sometimes you'll call me at the end of the night, you want me to let Daryl send you an email?
You can send me an email. A text may not be through, but it does. I don't know about tonight, but I
So about a little this, a little that. How are you? You've been with the sisters? About 95. Okay. I'm not gonna call it. Well, I just need to.
Oh, man. All of these
I was going to say, yeah. We missed my chat in last night.
people in the parking lot.
Yeah, 5:45. So it's interesting, it's a big conversation. The house was half.
He said he didn't want.
Thank you.
Yeah, and when we were in the office.
Oh, that did come in. I thought you were teasing.
No, well, I was teasing you.
How are you?
Good.
I haven't seen you.
I know.
And you know, I missed your beach chair.
Thank you.
So we
I
have.
laughed so hard, I was telling you. And John Marshall, one day I saw them all out in the field and there was this one big snow person.
Jerry, you know,
Connecticut, they would have days that would not, they didn't go out and there was no, much less put you in a snowsuit.
All right, meeting 5:30, I'm going to call the meeting to order for the school board meeting. So this meeting is from 5:30 to 6, and then we have a budget hearing at 6 o'clock. So we may not finish this school board meeting, so we may have to adjourn to go to the budget meeting and then come back to the school board meeting, just to give you a little lay of the land of how this kind of works on this kind of night, where we have 2 meetings in one night. So thank you all for coming, though. I'm very excited to see people. So thank you. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. First action is approved minutes from 1/18/22.
So moved.
Second. You weren't, you can't second.
Any changes? Anything? They were done well. Okay. So all those in favor? I wasn't there, but I'm going to go again. Okay. Number 3, we're going to go to citizen comments, and since we have masks on and I didn't bring my glasses, if you could state your name and obviously where you're from, because we are live streaming, that would be wonderful. So any citizen comments at this time? Tish?
Hi, Tish Hanlon, and I know Jen, I've spoken to Jen and Gail and Darlene know about this, but I just had a comment about, I feel as though the Whitney should be capable of it's a budget meeting, and also that when we have the annual meeting, that it should be available to people by Zoom, so it could be interactive. And I know Barbara Campbell and I spoke today, we emailed each other today and talked about how we want to have that for the next meeting. But I think it's really important, and that I want to acknowledge the fact that our community is doing everything we can to keep everybody safe and support our school by letting you guys have the Whitney all the time. But at the same time, you can't say, now come to these meetings and you'll be safe and there's no state of emergency, because a lot of people still don't feel comfortable. So that's that. I want to say it.
Thank you. I actually got some really nice feedback from somebody at the town offices. Basically, I have a post-it next to me to talk about that tonight for next month, to make sure that this, we do what we can to make this more inclusive for the folks that want to be part of the conversation, but don't feel like they want to be in this building as a larger community. So thanks, Tish.
I think we have to.
Yep.
Yes,
So, right, the executive order was that the board actually had to be present after the emergency order was lifted. So we have made the meetings available by Zoom. I don't think that you can vote by Zoom. That's the only problem, is you actually have to be present at the meeting in order to place a vote. So that would be like the school meeting, because you'd have to check in with the supervisors of the checklist. But as far as making the meetings available live, we can probably do that some way, put up a screen and connect it and make that and have a moderator for that. But as far as, that's more the public hearing piece, but actually voting, you have to be present in order to make that happen.
Can the voting be in writing so that people didn't have to be here to raise their hand, but they could come in and fill out a ballot and leave if they didn't feel comfortable? Would that be an option?
So I know your actual voting for the election of officers takes place. Where does that take
Here.
place? Here?
Yep.
So are you saying you drop off the ballot here?
Or that you would have, whatever you're going to have in the warrant articles or whatever people would have to physically vote
The
on,
deliberative.
they could come in and do that and not spend very much time and just walk out? Is that a possibility?
Like get like a school board ballot when they got
Yeah.
theirs.
Yeah.
It's a great idea, but it's not possible.
It's not.
No, state law does not allow for that, so there'd be no way to do it legally.
Well, there is something where you can, if you get so many signatures, you can ask that something go to a written
You
file.
can ask, so 5 people that are present at the meeting signing a petition to the moderator to ask for a secret ballot, that can occur, yes.
That can occur.
And then, so if you were to do that on each article, per se, you have to then open up voting for that for 1 hour. So we would theoretically have to do that for each one of the warrant articles that we have on the warrant. And you can actually overlap those hours, but it would make for a very long, pretty difficult meeting
Yeah.
for people that want to do it that way. Mostly from the standpoint of, it's also the deliberative session. So we're here to actually discuss those warrant articles and debate them, maybe amend them. And if all that was occurring was voting by secret ballot, it takes a lot away from that aspect of it, and it doesn't allow for an honest, real debate. So, unfortunately, for the annual district meeting, people will have to be present for that. Because even if it was by secret ballot, they'd have to go out of the building, back into the building for each one. It would be, a long, difficult, confusing process.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the explanation. That's, it's kind of.
But as far as the Zoom,
difficult.
providing it to be Zoom, whether it's that meeting or these meetings, is something that we probably should have done already and haven't. So I think it's a good idea. And I think we all kind of agree that if we can do it, we have the technical ability to do it. I think it's going to take someone actually running that portion of the meeting, and we'll figure out how to do it. But that's, I think, we're all in agreement would be a good thing to do.
I do have concerns. I mean, the way we've done that before, we wound up with porn.
Yeah. So,
And we had to.
We're much better now.
Yeah. So, I know,
We
but,
learned, you guys learned from your.
We learned a lot.
I know, but you know, there is those issues that come up as well with
Right,
that. So, so there's that as well. But, and it would be nice to have people here, and, you know, we are the safest community so far. So, hopefully people will at least make an effort. But
I
we
think
can
there's
work on
something to
Zoom.
be-
And we're live streaming tonight.
I think there's something to be said though, that like the PTO right now has really exceptional attendance because they met in person once, the attendance dropped way off. They went back to, and I know that we can't
Right.
like Google Meet, but the attendance is like top notch because folks can be in their own kitchen in the house with their camera off, participating in the conversation as they want to be, because they want to be there, but the family structure and the timing of these meetings can be challenging, but having people here tonight is really, like, I'm so excited, like, you know, yay, you know, because it's wonderful, and so offering that attendance in some way at regular board meetings, even though it gets a little murky sometimes with the technology, I think that the people who want to be part of the conversation, but just structurally because of the way that their evening and their families work, I think we would see a really nice uptick in presence, which would be nice.
So we can look into that and figure that out for April. Yep. It's March moving to the year. Okay, thank you, Tish. Any other citizen comments? Nope, okay. We'll move on, Gail, we'll move on to you.
Okay, well, I'd like to introduce to you Alyssa Prince and Katie Reardon, two of the representatives of our PTO and in the leadership team. And I've asked them to come tonight to talk to you about a grant that they wrote. So, Katie and Alyssa.
Hi. So I'm Alyssa Prince. I have my son Cole Prince is in 6th grade at JGS.
And I'm Katie Reardon, and I have a son, Robbie, who's in the 3rd grade. And I've been on PTO since he was in kindergarten because Mrs. Grove says, you're going to be on PTO. And I love it, and I'm glad that she encouraged me to be on the PTO.
So last fall we got together as a PTO and we were talking about grants, and we kind of did some brainstorming. What type of grants would we ask for the school, and then what type of options do we have to apply for grants? So in our brainstorming, because of COVID, we decided we wanted to write a grant application for an outdoor learning experience. So we put together a grant application that was called an artist in residence, and it's called En Plein Air. It's a way of painting when you paint outside. So we put that grant together, and Carrie Scribner, the JGS art teacher, helped us a lot with quotes about the history of art in Jackson, and we brought that together. And we submitted it to the Berlin City Drive for Education, which is a grant funding organization. So unfortunately, Berlin City last year decided they weren't going to give out grants because of COVID, but we were able to do kind of a smaller program for the kids with an En Plein Air activity in the spring, and they painted the Jackson Grammar School. So now fast forward to this fall.
And so this fall, they were accepting the applications again. Again, we didn't know if they were going to decide last minute not to have the program, because that's what we did run into last year. So we submitted it, and we submitted for $2,800, and they awarded us $4,000. So that was really exciting. We got the check in December, and it's been deposited. It's in the JGS PTO bank account. And we are looking forward to working with Carrie and Melanie to do another En Plein Air painting program for the kids. Now, you probably are wondering, well, we've got some extra funds. So we're going to work with the staff and Gail and all kind of talk together about what we can do with these other funds that can benefit the school and bring more programming. It will be something that will be voted on by the PTO, so it's going to be really well thought out, and we're going to make sure that we you do good with these funds that we got. So.
Awesome.
Well done.
That's fabulous. So keep in mind if I need to write a grant.
I know, right here. And they're also we're going to do like a big check ceremony, so that's going to be really cool. And I think they're probably gonna wait till better weather so that all the kids can be in it and they can, you know, have the big check and do maybe a little newspaper article.
I love the big check. Yes.
I know, so cool.
Thank you, that's amazing. Is there anything you need from us, or? Nope. All right.
If you have any ideas, and we're open to ideas about spending the money.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for all your hard
Actually,
work.
and other grants, you know, we'd be happy to, we'll continue to brainstorm from a PTO perspective, but if anyone knows of any grants that, you know, are available through New Hampshire, through the country, we can definitely look into applying for them. So.
Yeah, I know Gail is amazing with finding out little grants and big grants and stuff, so, yeah. So thank you so much, that's amazing. You guys are doing an amazing job with PTO, so thank you. Thank you. Anything else? No. Okay, no, okay, old business, the tuition contract, high school. Do you want to do an update now?
We can do that down under my report there, and talk about the cooperative plan piece.
Okay, so we'll move on to the second reading and adoption of policies. I'm going to move to make a motion on all of the 1 through 6 right now. Yeah, and then we'll vote on them separately. So, Jerry, what can we make a motion?
I'll make a motion for the second reading and adoption of policies listed 1 through 6.
I'll second that.
All right, so policy EDBA, accountability of instructional materials. Okay. All those in favor? And these are the second readings. So, JCDAD, drug-free workplace. All those in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. DAF, administration of federal grant funds. All those in favor? Okay. GBG, employee protection. GBJ, personnel records. And GCB is professional staff contracts. All right, we need a motion for personnel policies for non-contracted employees for 22-23 salary schedule for hiring.
Make a motion.
Second?
Does anybody have any discussion on that? Or is that one separate because it has to do with salaries?
And the last meeting, Jen, we did like a pretty
You
good.
did it their own, okay, thank
conversation
you. All right,
about this.
then, yep, then okay, then we're good. Okay, so all those in favor? Thank you. Thanks, Kate. Personnel policies for contracted employees, 22 salary schedule for hiring, Article 12-1, track changes. Second reading, so all those in favor? Great. Okay, consider personnel actions. All right, business 21-22 budget status report.
I'm sorry, Jen.
Okay.
I meant to ask Kevin at that last one. Are we getting close to getting all this like policy stuff like kind of complete, or?
Oh, gosh, no, Jerry.
I mean, then
You guys have been working so hard at that like the last couple of years. And it's,
Yeah,
they just
no.
keep rolling out.
So it's a great point. So each year, typically in like August, we get a list of all the new laws that have to be taken into consideration. And those are must-haves, right? Those are, you have to put those in place. And then there are a lot of policies, there are like 1,000 policies, and by the time we go through, literally pages and pages. In what Katie has done a great job with the board is to try and update those, because they have not been updated. Some of them are still in the 1980s, so some of them are minor language changes, but yeah, it's a never-ending battle to update all the policies.
I will say that we are out of the 80s.
Yes, yes.
Kate and I are on the policy committee, and we've actually gone to, instead of every month, we're now at every other month, because that's how caught up we are. So we have been making a lot of progress in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and it's actually been kind of cool to like see some of them that have come across the board and get to change some of the language to be more inclusive and to kind of strike things that aren't kind of modern in some certain ways, and they're all now, everyone that we touch becomes non-binary, and instead of using his, her, it's they, theirs, and so kind of just like moving through those in a really nice way, I think has actually been pretty cool.
Well, thank you for all the hard
We're
work
not all
that
riveted.
everyone's been doing to get all these done.
Kate is way more excited about that than I am.
Just put the, positive spin on it, last out full policies.
No, it's interesting to see what policies were, and then now the technology and everything from e-cigarettes to computers to cell phones, like all this stuff we have to go through, so it's pretty interesting. Okay, so budget status report, any questions on that at this moment? No. Okay, consider revised agreement with Bartlett for OT services.
The reason for the change on this is due to personnel changes. So the person who was in this at the beginning of the year is different than who is currently in this, so, and also the service hours, so that has to be adjusted accordingly.
I don't think we need to consider, so should we vote on it?
Yeah.
Okay, it's time, okay. All those in favor of approving the revised agreement with Bartlett for OT services? Thank you. Those Bob's rules. So administrators report, the superintendent?
Yeah, just,
there we are.
I can give a little bit of an update. So there are handouts here. The final report of the Mount Washington Valley Cooperative Planning Committee. So to refresh your memory, last year at this time there was an article on your warrant as well as the 8 towns to form a cooperative school district planning committee. And really the question was, does that committee recommend moving forward with developing a cooperative school district articles of agreement? The committee started in September, and you had Jerry and Jen and Darlene who attend those meetings, monthly meetings. I have to say, to get those 8 towns together, and for those of you who have been here long enough to remember the last time that these discussions took place, they were a little bit different. These were professional, they were informative, they were respectful. We had Attorney Upton come up. He's kind of been through a number of cooperative agreements. And people did their homework, the board talked with folks back and forth, presented their ideas and opinions. And then most recently on January 26th, after vetting that entire process, it was decided at this time that moving forward with a cooperative is not something, it was a unanimous agreement. With that being said, I think everybody in the 24 people that were part of this committee felt as though we need to really continue the conversations and explore the options for what does that school organizational structure look like moving forward. And so final report is here, it's on the table, feel free to take a look at it. I know Jerry and Darlene and yourself feel free to jump in, but yeah, it's nice having Jerry who has that historical perspective on the committee, and it was well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
What is the communication process for the town?
This goes into the annual report. We're reporting on it at the board meeting, and I don't know if you want to include it in any communications out.
It was in the paper. We could.
It was in the
It
paper.
was in the paper.
Tuesday was a very nice write-up about the whole thing in the paper.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah, I read it.
So when you get your actual annual report for the annual meeting, all those booklets that everybody gets, there is a copy of this in that report.
Okay, great.
That's a great question, Darlene, but I would also say that Kevin presented that to us tonight. That's as far as the RSA, that cooperative plan is concerned, that's all that it had to do.
Okay.
It'd be great to get it into the town reports that way too, so.
Okay. I wasn't sure because it was on the warrant. I knew it has to be.
Now, there's no other vote other than that was the charge of that committee by, yeah.
And there'll be another committee at some point in
Yeah,
time.
there absolutely will be.
Just for you, Darlene.
Thank you.
So, COVID, Sas, just to give you a little bit of an update, you know, coming off of Christmas break was pretty challenging for us in terms of number of cases. Following the first week in January, we had 102 cases, I think, and then it was 80 cases, and then it was 60, and then 50, and then down to 40. So that's good news. We've had about 650 cases throughout the year. If you were to ask me in September, would we hit 650? Absolutely not. One of the pieces that, you know, there are glimmers of hope, right? I do think so, with people getting vaccinated, boosting, and we're able to keep all the schools open. Does it have an impact? It absolutely does. The guidelines did switch from 10 to 5 days, which helps out. So if people feel well enough to come back, they are coming back. And those who are not, they are not coming back. But the building administrators and the teachers have done a great job of keeping the kids in school. That was our #1 priority and has been for 2 years. Pam can talk a little bit about the Sas Updates. We're still testing on a weekly basis, available at all the schools. So, you know, hopefully the conditions keep dropping. You know, I had Lloyd Jones from Daily Sun called me up and said, geez, you know, what does this mean as far as red, yellow, and green? I said, well, when we developed that plan back in August, and you know, the benchmark, the threshold was 250 cases per 100,000, put us in this red. That got blown out of the water. You know, most recently it's like 2,500 cases in Carroll County per 100,000. And obviously the COVID that we know now is different than the COVID that it was in the beginning of March and even through all of last year. So it's kind of like predicting a snowstorm. You know, it's hard to say exactly whether we're going to have school tomorrow or not. You wake up, you take a look, you probably won't have school tomorrow. Is this live? Don't even say it. But, you know, you wake up, you check all those different conditions, and you put all those things together, and then, you know, it does relate to what's happening in Jackson, in the grammar school, what's happening in the high school. But we've tried to incrementally make changes to address some of these things. You know, increasing the number of participants, audience members at the high school sporting events, trying not to restrict, you know, some of the other pieces, but keeping it in check and slow and methodical. So, you know, for some people, we're going a little faster than what they would like, and then for other people, we are definitely not going as fast as what we would like. So, welcome to the world of administration and making those decisions. But overall, you know, the staff, like I said, in the community, they're doing a good job of keeping the kids in the community safe. But people are fatigued, they're tired, there's no doubt about it. And we're starting to see some of those effects, you know, take place. And you really feel poorly for those people that were out for a year and a half and didn't have all the structures and supports that maybe some of our students did. And we're seeing that when they return to school, maybe in first grade or kindergarten, didn't have those experiences. So just because the pandemic may be reaching the endemic stage doesn't mean that the work of the educators is going to slow down and become easier. It's going to take a while to recover from this. And I think it's been a long couple of years, and thank goodness we have great staff and great community to support that. So I don't know, Pam, if you have anything else?
Yeah, no, that was well said. I think right now we're cautiously optimistic. You know, if we read the news and meet with the medical providers we meet with, your community here continues to participate in testing every week, almost the same number of people every week, which is fantastic. We're waiting right now, Gail and I were talking, we're waiting for the final results. Sometimes they don't come in quite late at night. from our test testing yesterday. But things are moving along.
And if there's any need for masks or other pieces, contact Pam.
Did you get your 400 pieces?
We got
We
truckloads and
Good job.
so,
I almost
seriously,
got
if
kicked out of the office. We got
Pallet
delivered pieces of kids' masks, and our guys, our maintenance guys were great. They took a box truck and a trailer down, and drove them down, and we surprised all the principals with cases and cases of stuff. So hopefully we won't need it all. We can donate it to the hospital or somewhere else in the future. But we've got a lot of PPE.
Hey, real quick question.
Thank
If
you.
people have COVID, how long until they're allowed back in the SAS schools?
90 days. So, but if I can, if a person has had COVID and is within the 90 days and starts to become symptomatic again, they should never be PCR tested. They should have the antigen, so the at-home rapid test.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the PCR test will continue to show that they have a viral load,
Yep.
but that doesn't mean that they're still sick.
Great, thank you. All right, since it is 6 o'clock, I'm going to close this part of the meeting.
No.
No?
Recess.
So just recess. Recess. And then we're going to move to the public meeting. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, it's so nice to have you here. Oh, they were awesome. You giant pile of artwork, sorry. God, did we get all what? Artwork.
apparently the.
Artwork. What did you think? What is artwork? Artwork. Oh, artwork. Artwork. He got one Valentine's. Oh, I'm sure he's very thank you. Oh, I kind of had a couple of I didn't quit, but. The light instead of the screen,
Okay, meeting 6 o'clock, I'm going to call the public budget review hearing in order. Thank you guys for coming, really appreciate it. I would ask that if you have any questions or anything, please state your name, where you're from.
Would you like me to give it over to
I'd love you to take
Chair?
it away.
Yes. There are extra budgets on this one sheet here for anybody who does not have it. I'd like to start with, I'm Superintendent Kevin Richard, for those who don't know. We'll go with the summary, the page that says summary 2022-23, and we'll go through that, and then if there are questions regarding lines, and then we'll discuss the warrant articles. So overall, you can see the budget, excluding the special articles and including the grants, is $2,854,739. That is a reduction to the budget over the previous year of $138,379. So what we'll discuss is where those big changes are in how that number came through. So we anticipate $14,000 worth of grants. Sometimes you get more, sometimes you get less, but you have to raise and appropriate the anticipated amount, and then it's offset by the revenue later. So if you go to the next section, you'll see salaries. The salaries overall are up. What does that mean? Well, there are a number of factors that contribute to that taking place. So through the personnel committee and through the school board, a couple things that were addressed were Jackson wants to be as competitive as possible to get the highly qualified people here, and also retain the people that are doing a great job in the schools. So through the personnel committee, there were adjustments made to current employees in the budget for next year, as well as raising the bar for new hires coming in. As you folks know, you live in the valley, it's very difficult to recruit people because there are more job openings than there are people out there. And it was a little bit lagging behind for some of the support staff and the non-contracted folks. So the personnel committee took that and they just adopted that into the policies tonight to raise some of the starting salaries to like $14.30 an hour. And for next year in the budget, if you were to hire somebody with no experience for some of those positions, it raised it up to $16.50 an hour for some positions. Others were a little bit higher. As you folks know, this is something that's been on the radar for Jackson School Board. Bus driver shortages, there were some adjustments that had to be made a couple of years ago. But at the same time, they wanted to take into consideration and try to compensate current employees, so some of those folks got at least a $2 an hour raise moving forward. The teaching staff, you're very lucky to have a veteran teaching staff. But in the event that you have to hire new staff members, you want to make sure your hiring schedule is competitive, if not at the standard or a little bit above. So Jackson has done a nice job of kind of raising that over the past couple of years, and every other year they raise that. So moving forward for next year, the starting salary for a teacher first year with a bachelor's degree would be $44,000. Now, that's not a whole lot of money, for people who have gone to college for a few years, have to pay off those student loans, but the other benefits do help out making that move forward. So that puts Jackson in a competitive advantage over regional schools, and we're talking Berlin, Gorham, Conway, Bartlett, even down to Tamworth, Madison, and Freedom. So you do have, it's a little more aggressive once you're hired, but those were a couple of the adjustments. So that meets some of these pieces here. There were also a few other personnel changes in the budget that you need to be aware of. One of those is Jackson had an agreement with Bartlett for a lot of the services. So for example, you had a 20% of the nurse at Bartlett. You had 20% of a technology position in Bartlett. So creatively saying, it's very difficult to find somebody who has 1 day a week that they can offer or 20% position. So combining those to create a more inviting position made it a half-time position in some cases and a full-time position in other cases. So that's reflected in the budget as well. Did you want to speak specifically?
I was just going to say it's the library media combined with tech.
So that was the biggest piece. And that would be a full-time position moving forward. Okay, so those are salary increases. And if you, yes, Jessica.
I just want to clarify, so the library position is combined with tech, and that's going up to a half-time position?
We are still without a library person right now. We have not been able to find a 1 day a week library position. And technology, we're purchasing from Bartlett. It was 20%. They couldn't afford to give us that much. So I felt that with the current need for instruction and getting the teachers up to speed, maintaining technology currently, that if we stood a better chance of finding a really highly qualified individual by combining those two positions into one person that would be in our building consistently.
Is that an FTE or half of one, or what does it end up being?
Full-time.
Okay.
Full-time, yeah.
So it's combining part-time positions
Okay.
to a
Into one
full-time
full- okay, I
position.
wasn't sure if it was like
Yeah,
two
with
full-times
benefits.
or half-time.
And we'll go through some of those highlights in the budget. Health insurance, even though there's a switch to the health.
Tish has one.
I just had a question about that, the media and library. I mean, right now, so it would be a 40% position, given that the library was one day and media was one day, but you're turning it into 100% for, you know, with benefits. Is that person also gonna maybe help with, in classrooms with, you know, is it gonna take the place of someone else who's working part-time, or it's just a whole new full-time position?
It doesn't take the place of anyone else, no, but the job is expanded to more of a teaching. Right now, the technology is more of the maintenance of the hardware and the wiring. This position will be more working with students and using the technology for research, for class projects, you know, that kind of thing, and for the instructional staff to also have them to bring in new applications and programs for the teachers to use. Now that we're using Google Classroom and we're using so many more technology tools today, it's really hard for teaching staff to teach and keep up with what's current. So that's the vision for that, is that they'll be spending a lot more time with professional development with the staff.
It came to light a lot with the pandemic, so there's that aspect of it.
We're good? Yep. And you'll also see the health insurance. That's a number that was given to us, a not to exceed number. There was a decrease in the insurance because there was a switch in the plan last year. But this year it's up to 12.73%. We won't know that number until later on. Okay, moving down to the next section, it's special education. You can see that Pam works with Gail and the staff, and they budget for students with disabilities as per their IEP, or their individualized educational program. And you know, sometimes it's more expensive, sometimes it's less expensive, and you can see that that is down about $5,400. The next section down, you do have a tuition agreement with Bartlett for middle school, and you have a tuition agreement with Kennett High School. So Bartlett, in their the middle school piece, pays based upon single students. So however many students go to Bartlett, you pay a per pupil cost to Bartlett for that. Next year you have 12 students going to Bartlett. One of the things that you have to remember is that per pupil cost fluctuates. So Bartlett had a decrease in enrollment, and that causes the per pupil cost to go up a little bit. So that is in there as well. You'll see the high school tuition. So the high school tuition is based upon not this current year's enrollment, but a year ago enrollment. So what you're budgeting for, because that's an exact number. So for example, in this budget moving forward, it was the number of students that were in school last year up until June 30th. Okay, so that's an exact number. Because that's why you'll see things like in last year's budget, you had 30.22 students. And people always say, well, how do you have 0.22 students? Well, if somebody moves in halfway through the year, if somebody moves out, you pay accordingly. So you have 180 days in the school year. If somebody attends for 90 days, that's a 0.5 of a student. If they attend for 45 days, that's a 0.25 student. So in this year's budget, you went from 30.22 students last year to 21.86. That's why that number drops significantly, or $272,000. And that's all based upon the tuition formula that is coming to a close in the next, 4 or 5 years. You also pay a share of the bond of the high school, and you pay a share of the maintenance trust form. And that's based upon your percentage of your equalized valuation. Okay? So Jackson has 8.5% of all the town's equalized valuation. So when that bond goes up, and let's say it's $1 million, Jackson's responsible for 8.5% of that. Other towns pay different percentages based upon their equalized valuation. Are there any questions on tuition for regular education? We can take a look at the summary for maintenance. And you'll see those numbers are pretty stable unless there's a project that has to take place. So if you build a playground, if you build a pavilion, this year you'll see there's an increase to the contracted services grounds about $15,200. Part of that project is to do the paving outside of this building here. So that's the significant increase. You'll also see fuel is up a little bit. Jim Hill did a great job of locking in at a lower rate, but it's still higher than what it was last year.
Just back to that contracted services grounds, is that all paving, or are there other items in there?
That's actually sealing, they come and they paint over everything and they seal all the cracks. We have an agreement with the marketplace that when we do the school, we also have to do all out here and the side parking lot.
And is there any collaboration with the Whitney Board and any funding coming out of that, or do we cover all of that?
The school pays all of that.
Okay.
And that's just the increase, Jessica, the $15,200. We can take a look at the actual line to determine how much it is.
Yeah, I did that. Thank you.
Just to clarify on why we do all the paving there, it's because if we use their entranceway in here, and it's the wear and tear of their road that gets to our property, so what we cost from that, we feel it's fair that we compensate by doing the whole area.
So if you flip to the second page, again, it's summary 22, 23, and you can see these are others, kind of the rest of the budget, increases and decreases. Computers, supplies for computers, nothing big there. So you'll see contracted services, nursing supplies. So it says that line is down, but you'll see an increase, and that was the increase to the salaries early on. So you'll also see that for the contracted services, library and media specialist, that line is down 20,000, but it shows up in the salary lines in other places. Okay? The SAU is up, and again, that's a mechanism of your valuation that's paid for. You'll see a big decrease is the architectural services, $70,000. So last year there was money put into the budget, and I'm sure you're going to talk about that when the article comes out, to develop some schematics and some plans for potential discussion for Jackson Grammar School. And then there are some other just incremental changes, not a whole lot. So that reflects, all of those summaries reflect a decrease of $134,379. So then you have the individual lines that are reflected. And if you have questions on individual lines, you can ask those and we can answer those. If you'd like me to highlight some of those, I can do that as well.
Erica Klein. I have a question about line 7 for the part-time foreign language tutor. I see in the 2022 budget, it's 11,433, and in the 22-23, it's 7,920. And I'm curious as to why. One aspect of when I was hired is that the hours were increased from 6 to 12. That was part of the strategic plan to increase road and construction. So I'm just wondering if you can explain the numbers.
You want to talk about that? So I can talk, and then there's further discussion that will come up a little bit later on.
Later?
The personnel committee did meet to revisit that, and they will be addressing that. So part of it was a reduction in hours because of where it was at that particular time. So it goes back almost to where it was before. There's a thought to increase it, and then that was increased last year. It struggled to fill that position.
It's budgeted based on the individual who holds the position at the time, what they would need to get paid for the following year. So that 11,433 was what was budgeted for the individual that held the job previously.
So that was budgeted for 6 hours a week for the person who held the job previously?
No, it was the same number of hours that you're working.
Oh, it was the same as the 12 hours?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we can flip to page 2 if people have questions. And again, you'll see those tuition lines for the middle school and the high school. Your general supplies, no significant changes on there. The bottom of page 2, when we go to the bottom, we can go to page 3. And please, just grab my attention if you have questions.
Jessica? Hi, so I meant to say before, it's Jessica Lavalla. I know I should have done that, but just back to page 1, because I was looking for this new position. Where is the new position listed for the folded in? Is that under regular salaries of teachers, regular education, or where is that line item?
Yep, so that line will be the, so if you go to line, on page, it's at line 131. Line 131. So you'll see salary, tech, library, media.
Gotcha.
It's 54,000. And that's why you'll see right above that, Jess, is
Yeah.
line 130.
Yeah.
That's zeroed out.
Gotcha.
And you'll see that also in the other, a couple of the other lines.
148 would be the library, where the library is.
So because they aren't contracted services anymore and they'd be full-time staff, you have to create a new line for it.
And just on that one line 132, that mentor would be for that technology or the tech library media person?
I think it's 2 mentors
Okay.
at $1,000 apiece, because you have a 1-year position right now that's in place, and it's always good to have money for, if you have a change in person.
Sorry, I know this is speculating a little bit. Peter Benson, sorry.
Thank you.
But how confident are you that you will find a person?
Certainly more confident now that it's a one-person job than split it up. So, I mean, we're doing our best that we can. We've looked at the salaries, we've looked at other options. The personnel committee got together and was very creative with even looking at housing options and potential things of that nature to help somebody out should they move in from out of the community. So we're doing our best.
Yeah, and I think, Peter, that's best case scenario. If you have to go back to a contracted service, you could do that. It's just a matter of transferring money to a different line. But the hope is to have, a full-time person that believe that would contribute to the overall organization that you could keep and have in place.
I'm also hoping that you can attract people from another state to actually move here for a full-time job, whereas for one day a week, no one's going to uproot their family and actually move here unless they're moving here for another reason. So I think it enlarges the pool a little bit to other states in New England.
Thank you.
We can go through on page 3. Again, you'll see some supplies. Summer programming increased just a little bit.
And again, those people who have children here know I had to cancel the summer program last year because I had no prospects for any employees. So we raised the rate of pay a little bit for this coming summer.
Can I, Emily Benson, and I can't find the summer program here, but I was just curious how much coordination there is with the Bartlett Rec Department on any summer programming. The town does pay towards that.
And I did contract Annette and see if maybe the kiddos that I had registered, she could take and we could try to collaborate together. She didn't have enough staff either and had closed her program to new students and had a wait list. So she was in the same, she was in the same boat as we were.
It is on page 3, line 93.
Okay, thanks.
Jessica?
Could you just talk a little bit about why the salary for the after-school program went down? And could you also direct me to where your, I forget what the person's position title is, but it was supposed to be the person who was sort of like a K through 12 advocate for our students. I don't know if you still have that position anymore.
Yes. So we had a half-time enrichment coordinator who coordinated the after-school program last year. Was it last year? It was travel. So this year we separated that out to put the funds from that job into the family liaison position that we have that's covering the K to 12 students. And we hired an after-school coordinator separately from that. And it's there somewhere, let's see.
It is on page 3.
105?
105.
Yeah.
So the family liaison coordinator now does the after school?
No. We hired an individual at an hourly rate to do work 2 days a week, 10 hours a week.
Okay, so
To offer the Monday and Wednesday, it was just 2 days a week, Monday, Wednesday.
Okay.
So to answer your other question, if you go to line 110, that was where, remember, you had a part-time guidance counselor service. It should probably have / guidance counselor family support liaison, but that's a full-time position now, and that's on line 110. So 3 years ago? 4 years ago? That was again, another contracted service. That was a 20% position. The board reorganized that position to make it a full-time position, which included the guidance counselor taking on the responsibilities of family support liaison.
In addition, Joe Yana over in Bartlett had reduced the amount of time that we would get because he felt like he needed a full-time counselor there, and we were no longer able to kind of buy our 20% from him, from the Bartlett School District. Similar to what happened with technology as well.
And just one, sorry, Emily Benson again. Sharing those services. And where does the school stand with the nurse? Is there still that 20%?
We are sharing now.
Yeah, okay.
She's retiring this year,
Right.
so we're going to look and see if it's possible to go back to the model where we have our own
Okay,
employee.
so same,
If
yeah.
not, we'll try to bargain again with them to share.
Okay,
the
So if you
numbers.
look at line 121, on page 4, you'll see the contracted services
that's what I was looking at.
was
yeah.
10, and that's why you'll see a new line that says salaries nurse at
Okay.
25.
That's what that was, okay, thanks.
Continue through page 4. Anybody has any questions?
Just to clarify, because I'm not sure I understood Stella Vala's question or the answer. So in 2021, the after-school enrichment coordinator was also a family